Hello, hello. Good morning and good afternoon to everyone who is watching us today. I'm so glad that you're all here for this wonderful session, Talks and Pros, with Christina Garnett, our valuable speaker who will be talking about community meets customer experience. And I'm your host for today, Anna Nightingale. Let's take a moment to settle in, grab some water, and get ourselves comfortable as we will be starting in just a few minutes. And before we begin, traditionally, can you just drop your locations in our chat box to let us know where you're all watching us from? You can also share your LinkedIn profiles in the chat box. It will help you to get connected with each other and stay in touch. And just a few acknowledgements about our sponsor for today. It's BetterMode. Thank you, BetterMode, so much for making these live sessions happen. If you're watching us from the public stream, head over to Led by Community Talks and Pros event.com series and check out the boxes below the stream to learn more about the session and our sponsor. Okay. And just a couple of words. Oh, that's wonderful. Some people are watching us from Massachusetts. Great. Keep putting your locations in the chat. Keep sharing your LinkedIn profiles. And traditionally, I would like to mention a couple of words about our upcoming sessions. On May 28th, we're going to have a community live demo spotlighting Monday mention. And of course, in July 8th through July 11th, we're going to have London Community Week. It's going to an in-person event. And if you happen to be in London during that week, please make sure to attend those valuable sessions. You're going to have a lot of great information about how to build your communities. Check out our calendar of events in the chat box. There's going to be a link. And of course, as we go through this session, please feel free to ask your questions in the chat. We're going to have the Q&A segment at the end where we'll be bringing up your questions, highlighting them, and Christina will be answering those questions. And also, fantastic news, if you're having FOMO, this live session is being recorded and it will be available in our video library shortly after. So you can replay it, you can share it with your friends. This information is recorded, so you can always go back to it. It's going to be available once again in our video library. Oh, France is watching us. That's very exciting. Hi. And now it's time for me to introduce our speaker guest. It's Christina Garnett. I a little bit mispronounced her last name. My apologies, Christina. Christina is phenomenal. She is a leading voice in customer experience and brand advocacy. She is celebrated for her sharp strategy and deep empathy. As a fractional chief customer officer and advisor to companies of all sizes, from startups to Fortune 500, she helps brands turn customers into loyal advocates. Her insights have been featured in Adweek, Forbes, and Entrepreneur, and she has spoken at top events like Inbound and Digital Summit. Christina has also created a standout educational content with HubSpot Academy, SEMrush, and Heorka, equipping markets and community builders to lead with heart and strategy. Let's welcome Christina. Hi, Christina. So glad to see you here today and so excited about this session.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat about all things community and CX. It's definitely something that's very, very much a great love of mine. So thank you so much for joining us. And I see some familiar names in the chat. So thank you so much for joining us. It means a lot to me.
All right, Christina, the floor is yours. And we're so excited to learn strategies about customer experiences in communities.
Sounds great. Let's get started. All right, so the main thing we're going to be talking about today is community meets CX and how that needs to be working together in order to elevate the customer journey. Before we get started, I think it's very important to understand where we're coming from, and especially that community and CX does not exist in a bubble. So when we're talking about all these grand ideas and these strategies, we need to understand the world that we live in and how that's going to play out. So we're going to talk about these key pieces: the power of connection, it takes a village, the biggest threat to CX, community kills silos, the umbrella of care and identity, the takeaways and action items. But we got to start with the power of connection. If you're living under a rock this week, then you'll know that quite a lot of people were experiencing a big layoff this week. And there's been, even just this year alone, there's been a lot of people who've lost their jobs, both in the community space and the tech space, just basically all over the place. And so I think it's very important to acknowledge this, because this is going to impact how we work together, how we see collaboration versus competition, and especially how we build ourselves in the work that we do. And so when we're thinking about the power of connection and we're talking about the power of community, we can't forget the outside variables that impact our work, that impact our lives, that impact how we show up for work. It is incredibly important to acknowledge this, because these layoffs and things like them, they make us vulnerable and they make us show up differently. They make us show up with a scarcity mindset. So for community managers and community pros, we want to talk to everybody. We want to work with everybody. We want to be inclusive. And we want to go into the Slack channels of all of these other departments and make friends. And how can we work together? And how can we do this? And if you are a community pro, you'll know that you often get rebuffed. You often don't get the warm and fuzzies returned right back to you the way that you would expect them to. And as a community pro, you immediately feel kind of taken aback, because you're wondering, well, why wouldn't you want to work with me? I want to help you. I want to make things better. And that's why we need to understand that scarcity mindset, because in a world where there are layoffs, it feels like you are either the saved or the cut. And so when you are trying to keep your job, or you're worried that you're going to keep your job, then you're going to focus on your own metrics. You're going to focus on your own success, and you're going to focus on getting what you need done so that you can be kept, so that you'll be saved in the next cut. It's very hard to want to collaborate and give extra time to other people when it feels like that is going to take you away from your individual mission and could therefore lead to you being laid off. I'm not saying that's what will happen, but I'm saying that is the mindset, whether they realize it or not, of the people who are saying no to collaboration. Is we are in a fight or flight survival mode for a lot of us in the corporate space. And so what I'm talking about here, there's going to be a lot of great ideas. There's going to be tactics. There's going to be things that you need to do. But the first thing that I would ask you to do is get into the headspace of the people that you want to collaborate with. Because sometimes they're not just being jerks. Sometimes it's not that they're being selfish or mean or they're hard to work with. Sometimes they're just in a place of survival. And that's going to be necessary for you to understand, so that if you do collaborate with them, you know exactly what direction to take and how to best pitch that work together, so that they don't see you as a threat. They don't see you as something that's going to diminish their work. They see you as a value add. They see you as something that's only going to make their work even more powerful. Now, just as the power of connection for each of us in our individual teams is important, we also need to understand the idea of brands and how brands don't just exist and thrive on their own. They need to have connections through their customers, through their biggest fans, through the influencers that they work through the teams. But it takes all of these moving pieces working well together in order to make a brand really hit peak. And we've seen, as there's been more silos, as there's been more stress, more layoffs, we've seen a lot of really key brands start to falter because of that. And a lot of that has to do with AI. Now, I'm not anti-AI, but I am very protective about what AI should touch and what AI should not touch. AI should not be the creative. AI should not be the human touch. AI should not be the empathy piece. We need to be very, very specific about what we keep human and what we keep AI, and how we really draw that line very clearly and take a stand as to what that needs to look like. With Duolingo's AI first news, we see this firsthand. You see a brand that was thriving because of this connective mean girl energy. They're going to do unhinged things. They're going to dunk on you. They're going to be mean. They're going to do all these things. But that created a community around that content. And as soon as they basically said, we're going to be AI first, not human first, everyone kind of was like, that you're not who I thought you were. Like, this isn't the connection I thought we had. I'm good. And then you see a lot of backlash and you see a lot of people leaving. It's because of how they used AI. It's not the problem isn't AI, it's how you use it. And if you're building this love based on human connection, and then you say you're going to be AI first, not human first, you're going counter to what built that connection in the first place. And what happens to that connection? It breaks. And so when we're thinking about AI and when we're thinking about how we show up as human, especially when it comes to community and the customer experience, we need to be very thoughtful about what needs to stay human, because that will be the differentiator, the human premium, as some people call it. That becomes the thing that's different. That becomes the thing that makes people want to stay and want to do more with them. It's interesting to see this play out, though, because we're seeing more and more noise on social. We're seeing more noise in emails, and the connection is wavering. I myself personally am starting to actually create less content on social because it just feels like I'm throwing spaghetti against a wall that's just flooded with selfies and flooded with AI nonsense. And I'd rather not play the game. I don't want to play the game. I'd just rather leave. And so it's very interesting when we come to community that you do kind of feel the same way. I'm doing all these tactics, they're not working, or something shinier is getting all the attention. If you are feeling this way, then I would challenge you to sit with yourself for a little bit and think about what is the most human part of you and how can you show up unapologetically human. And that is how you show up. And it might get 2 likes. It might not get engagement at all, but at least you're showing up as your true self. And you're not doing it just for engagement. You're doing it to connect. And so as we think about this, we need to think about where community is going, where yes, we have all these automation tools. Yes, we have all these like different pathways and things that we can create and workflows. But how are we building the campfire? How are we going back to this ancestral need for connection and community? How are we saving what has turned into the digital third place? For those of you who don't know, the third place is a sociological term that was created by a man. I can't remember his name, it starts with an O. But he basically talked about how you have the first place, which is home. Then you have the second place, which is work or school. And then you have the third place. And in Europe, if you've ever been to Europe, you'll see the third place kind of everywhere. It's in cafes, it's in parks, it's in all these places where people are able to congregate, usually for free, and they're able to connect. Usually there's rituals, maybe there's a bingo night, maybe there's like after school, all the kids congregate in this special park and their parents hang out with them there, whatever that looks like. But especially in the United States, we have destroyed the third place by trying to commodify it. It's the Starbucks that you have to pay to be a part of. It's the concert that is now $500 when it was $100 10 years ago. It's all of these places where we want to deeply connect, but we've commodified it in a way where you have to pay to enter. You have to give something to become a part of it. And it's diminished that connectivity. And so the online world, the internet, social media became that third place. And what we're seeing now is that we've killed that third place too. We've killed it too. Now you have to have a subscription. There's bots everywhere. You're getting shoved things that you don't like. The algorithm is feeding you things like rage bait. You're not getting the connective energy and the feeling that you had when the internet was a third place. And so how can you show up in these spaces to bring it back to what it could be, to bring it back to the core of what community looks like? Because CX is a part of that. CX is seeing your brand show up online. CX is laughing at that meme that your team posted on LinkedIn or Twitter. It's making a joke in the comment section of a TikTok. It's showing up. It's showing up when people need your help. It's showing up when people say hi. It's showing up when people say, I love you. The customer experience does not just live in CS. It is not just your CSM's responsibility. It lives across every single department, because even if you're not customer facing, you are doing something that is going to eventually touch the customer. Your dev team is customer facing, whether you like it or not. Are they directly facing them? No, but they are building out the wireframe and the UX that customer is now going to be able to play with and hate or love. Your leadership is customer facing. Whenever you don't get enough attention or you don't get things resolved, you are going to be that person that rolls up and says, you know what, I'm going to at your CEO because your team didn't listen. The leadership is going to become customer facing very quickly. Every single person of your team is customer facing, and you need to treat them like that, because everything they touch and everything they work on eventually becomes a part of the customer experience. And because of that, we need to be careful about all of these moving pieces and bringing them together. And that's where community not only helps your customers, but it helps your team come together so they too can become a part of that, because it takes all of us. It takes every single one of us. One of the biggest lessons I had when I was at HubSpot and I was leading our advocacy was I was building off of the work of others. I was fixing relationships I didn't break. I was rewarding relationships I didn't build, because everyone that touched that customer before me impacted how well I was able to do my job with them. If sales lied to them about what HubSpot was capable of, and then they get to me, I have to now solve that relationship. They're not going to advocate for us if they hate us, if they don't trust us. So I need to fix that relationship. If a CSM is amazing and went above and beyond for this person, and then I get to talk to them as an advocate, I am building off of that other person's work. I am building off of the wins that other person created. So whether you like it or not, your work is all tethered. Every single touch point, whether physical or digital or emotional, is all tied in with all of us. So it takes all of us working together to be able to create the optimal relationship. And then it's important to note that, yes, community is a hype word, and yes, community has been a big buzzword since the pandemic happened, but it is so much more than that. It is so much more human than that. Community is relationships at scale. And so when we're thinking about customer brand relationships, when we're thinking about creating connection with our customers and our potential customers, you can't just throw up a Slack channel or build a Facebook group or like just open up a chorus thing and say like, here, I built it, I've launched it, it's great, and I can just keep on going. You don't simply build a community. It becomes a part of you, whether you want it to be or not. It becomes this living, breathing thing. And so when we're thinking about how community can save us, a lot of us talk about the customer community. It needs to be a little bit of both. It needs to be the customer community and the internal community coming together, and how you bridge that gap. Because that little centerpiece of the Venn diagram is where the magic happens. It's where your external, your customers, your fans are able to come in and feel like they belong. It's also where your internal team can now go in there and can do social listening, can reach out to people who have questions or ideas for a product roadmap. It's the opportunity for people to come in and see how they're helping people. What are the FAQs and what are the struggles that a lot of people are having? And then you have the brand itself that gets to be a part of that. So now it's branded and it has the look and the feel. And that community needs to exemplify and personify what that brand seems to be. If a brand tells you it's friendly and it's lovely and it's kind, then that community needs to personify that. It needs to share that branded emotionality. It needs to share that personality. And so when we're thinking about all these things, the community is not just for the customers. It's for all of these three pieces to come together to create this really beautiful overlap where CX is at its best. When everyone connects, when everyone becomes a part of this thing, it becomes a relationship where we care about each other, where we want to be there through the good and the bad, where we want to strive to make each other better, where there aren't egos, there's just each other. There's just us. And so when community gets this done really well, it's a very magical thing. I've had a lot of people ask me, like, how do you know if a community is successful? And I could rattle off every single metric I could. But any community pro will tell you it's a feeling. It's a vibe. It feels like magic. When you see people helping each other with nothing to gain, when you see people getting other people jobs, or they're helping each other out, or someone's having a rough day, but they can't wait to show up to make them feel better. It is emotional intelligence at its finest. That's when community is successful. And so when you have these pieces together and we all just want the best for each other, we all want to help each other get to our final form, that is community magic. That's when you know it's been successful. Now, leadership does not care about vibes. Let's just go ahead and get that out of the way. Leadership does not care about vibes. So they want something that's going to help them really kind of, okay, this is great, Christina. That's amazing. Vibes are great. We want magic, but like, I need this to do something. Great. Here's the community flywheel. So we have our community-led growth. We're going to have those public spaces, that social media, all those things that you're able to actually have that third place. And then that's going to help people attract. That's going to be that attraction motion within the customer journey. And then we're going to help convert them into more private spaces where maybe that's a private community or a newsletter or something like that. And that's going to be where we're deeply engaged, where it's not only us to them, but it's them to them. Now we're helping create this network. We're weaving these connections, not just between the brand and us, but us and us. And so that way they're able to really connect. And then as we do that, there's going to be a sense of ownership. There's going to be a sense of empowerment. And that's going to lead to advocacy, which is going to further grow and have people believe you and become a customer and all these other things, because people will advocate for what they believe in. They'll advocate for what they want other people to be a part of. If it feels special enough, they want to share that. They want other people to know how amazing it is and how different it is in this world where everyone's trying to just yell at you. They're going to want to tell other people, and other people are going to want to hear that. They're going to trust strangers over others. They're going to trust someone on the internet over the brand saying how great they are. And that becomes that human connective flywheel that we're going to be able to create, which is going to create trust. It's going to create conversion. It's going to help your retention rates, and it's going to really kind of build over all the growth and all the shiny metrics your leadership cares about. Here's the problem though, and I alluded to this earlier. The biggest threat to CX is that everyone wants to be the person who won. Everyone wants to be the hero. Everyone wants to be the last touch or the first touch. The attribution model has destroyed how we look at each other because everyone's fighting to call dibs. This customer's here because of me, so that revenue's mine. So I can say, I brought in this amount of money, so you're not going to lay me off. You're not going to fire me because look at how much revenue I brought in. Look at my retention numbers. Look at these metrics. What that does is it pits teams against themselves. It pits individuals against themselves. And that biggest threat becomes a silo. So now you're not looking at marketing, sales, onboarding, CS, support, and community as this group that's all collectively working for the common good. What you see is departments that are fighting each other to say who was the best one. Who's killing it? Who's the best one ever? Marketing and sales are notorious for fighting with each other, but honestly, they should be the biggest allies for each other because they feed each other. If they do their jobs well, they will constantly feed each other, but we don't. We create silos. As teams grow, as brands grow, they create infrastructure to be able to sustain that growth. But what that does is it makes people further and further away from the customer. It gets them further and further away from where they should care, and it hurts them. There's minimum visibility. Maybe sales knows something about a customer, but if it doesn't in the CRM, then anyone else in the team isn't going to know what that was. You wind up having to knock on doors to be like, hey, I need customer stories, when it should be, this is how we structure this so that we can always share, that we can collectively help everyone do their job. You've pitted them against each other, so they each have an individual ego, which is the opposite of a community. Community can't thrive where there is ego. So if you are operating from a model of, I have to be number one, I have to have the most revenue, I have to have the highest retention, I can't work with you because you're just going to try to take my revenue from me, there's no way community can work there. You have to change that mindset. Community works from an abundance mindset. And as long as you have silos, you are going to have a scarcity mindset. And so we have to make sure that we are decreasing friction and we are increasing collaboration. We are minimizing the egos and we are increasing the need to work together. We're increasing that community. If we all win, then we're going to be fine. But those silos are built up and those silos are well structured. So we need to figure out how can we actually break this down? What are the problems with these silos and how can we actually make sure that we're working together to improve this? Well, a lot of people, if you've ever worked in corporate, you'll usually talk about the handoff, which is we're taking these customers from this department to this department to this department. And sometimes they'll even call it a relay race, which is great in theory until you realize that the baton is the customer. When was the last time you dreamed about someone treating you like a baton and throwing you like a hot potato from like person to person? Never, right? Not a dream of yours, not an ideal scenario. Well, there's a reason for that. There's a reason why you want to be treated like a human. There's a reason why you don't want to just be tossed from person to person to person. Those inconsistent messaging and broken handoffs make you feel like a number, make you feel like, why can't you help me? Why do you got to transfer me to somebody else? Why can't you just solve what I'm dealing with right now? Why do I got to go through 10 other people? Why can't this be smoother? It also has limited visibility. So now the first person and the last person in the handoff probably aren't talking to each other. They're basically playing telephone from handoff to handoff to handoff. So by the time the first person gently guides you to the second, by the time they've made it to the end of the race, there's lost communication. There's misunderstandings. They don't understand what went wrong. They don't feel trusted. Everything feels reactive. What you're doing is you're creating a system that feels like it should work in theory, except you forgot that that was a human you were talking about. You forgot empathy in the entire handoff. And that's why customers feel like transactions. They don't feel like relationships. They feel like money. They feel like they're only worth as much to you as how much money they're bringing in. And as soon as someone brings in more money, they're going to be cast down. They're not going to get as much responsive help. They're not going to get as much love. They're not going to get as much like connection. And they're feeling that way because that is absolutely what is happening. Your customers feel it. And speaking of layoffs again, who are the people who tend to get cut off first, who tend to get laid off first? It's usually the customer facing, traditionally customer facing. You have a lot of CS teams that are being replaced by AI. Klarna did this. They let go of their CS teams. They let bots do it. And they have figured out the hard way that there needs to be a human element. So now they're backtracking and talking about, no, they need to have a human touch because people need humans when they need empathy. I have no problem talking to a chatbot when I need convenience. But when I need someone to understand me, the chatbot cannot give me the empathy that I need. So depending on how you're seeing this, that impacts that customer. And when you lay off an entire layer, when you lay off their person, you've not only gotten rid of that line item in a spreadsheet, you got rid of the connective piece that contributed to that relationship. You severed the human that customer had a relationship with. That was their person. And so what you've done is, you now have you have one inefficient layer gone. You got rid of the relationship. You got rid of the tether. You got rid of the glue that made that person actually have a human connection to the brand. So you saved money, but are you going to save that customer in the long run by doing that? Probably not. And you need to remember that. So community kills those silos. Let's kill it. Community, you have to come in a different mindset. You have to come in with that abundance mindset, not a scarcity mindset. You have to come in saying, we're going to have to play together. We're going to have to collaborate. We're going to have to work together for this common good. And I'm going to share what I know about this customer, not because I don't think that you can't handle it, but because I want you to be as prepared as possible to do the best possible job taking care of this customer. And I don't see you as a threat. That's important. I don't see you as a threat. I know that you want to know this so that you can take care of the customer. And that's where we need to come from. We need to come from this place of connection. We need to come from this place of how everything can come together. The community has to be at the center of everything that we're building, because if you build community correctly, it doesn't just sit within one department. It feeds all of it. It is the sun that creates the light for everything. You can have people in the community tell marketing what's working and what's not working. You can have them tell marketing, these are the biggest problems that we're seeing. You should create blogs and messaging around this. They can talk to sales. This is the biggest objections that we see when we are trying to look at SaaS demos or whatever the product or service is. But this is something that your product does really well. You should highlight this specific feature. It's feeding intel, onboarding. Hey, I loved onboarding, but it could have been half the time that I spent on it if I had had videos. Do you have any video resources? Anything like that? Customer success. Not only can they help each other, but they could say, like, these are the top 10 FAQs that we have. Maybe that's something that you can put in the onboarding packet, or you can create blogs about, so that I don't have to go in the community, or I don't have to ping customer success in order to do that. Or I'm going to throw in a question and someone else in the community, a peer, is going to help me. Support. Same thing. You're going to be able to help each other. You're going to be able to ask those questions. You're going to be able to see what's happening. And it's going to feed into advocacy, because now you have people who feel empowered, who feel like they get to have a voice in this brand community. They get to be seen as something. They get to be elevated depending on like how involved they are and how much they're doing. But then you're able to feed that into the community. Maybe these advocates turn into moderators of your community. Maybe these advocates turn into like what we did at HubSpot, where I created the inbound correspondence program. Now they get a ticket to inbound and they're going to share on social their experience. Yes, the brand's going to tell you how great the event is. I want you to see the people on the street. I want you to see the people on there, that they're just like you. They're community members just like you. And now you're going to get to hear their voice, and you're going to see what they thought the sessions were like, what sessions were the best, and what they learned, and what were their insights, and why you should come next year. It becomes the voice of the community. The voice of the community feeds all of it. It feeds every single department. And I could add more here. This isn't even extensive. I could add even more departments. The community becomes the sun. The community lights up everything. It feeds everything. But only if you build it with the understanding that this is what we want to build, is we want connection. Because there's a lot of brands that are building community, and it's because of two things. They want to put all their fish in one barrel, and then they just shoot at it. They just send messages. They just send templates. They just send events. They don't connect with them at all. They just want one distribution channel, and I'm just going to shoot at these people, and they're all going to be in there to see it. Or they just want fans. They just want super fans. They don't want to build that fandom. They don't want to create those relationships and get someone from a customer to a fan, but they want them. They want to have that core group. It can't just be that. It has to be so much more than that. You are multitudes. You contain multitudes. So do your customers. Your community should feel that way. It should feel more than 3D. It should feel extensive. It should feel layered, because it is layered. And so you need to be thinking about, when you're building your community, is it just to put all of your fish in a barrel so you can shoot information at them? Because chances are most companies, that's exactly what what the community is. It's nothing else. Or it's a support forum and nothing else. Is your community really a community? That's the question for today. Is your community actually a community? Or is it a community that you've created, but you haven't built the community inside of it? You just gave it a place to live, and it's not doing well. If you are unhappy with the way that your community is doing, go back to your goals, go back to your objectives, go back to your desired behaviors, and really have a hard look at yourself to decide, what have you actually built? Is it a community? Or is it just a group of fans? Or is it just fish in a barrel? And be honest. You're going to need to be very honest there. That comes down to that customer community. It can't just be for them. It can't just be community of product, community of practice. It has to be for everybody. Why would you expect your customers to spend their time freely in your community if your own staff won't go in there? And I don't just mean the community managers. I don't just mean the people who, I mean, like, is product in there? Is leadership in there? You'd be shocked at how many, or maybe you wouldn't be shocked at how many leaders want a community but can't be bothered to even go into the community themselves. Won't even create their own profile. Won't do it. But they want a community. You have to have people show up. You have to have your internal team in there, and they have to understand why it's important and what's in it for them. Going back to the layoff, they're not going to collaborate with you They are not going to give you time if you can't explain to them what's in it for them. So anytime you are trying to collaborate with somebody, I want you to create like a 5-bullet list. Here is what I can provide for you, and here's how I can help you do your job better by working with me, by being a part of this community, and go. If they still don't choose to work with you, that's on them. But you have to be the one that educates them and explains to them, this is how we work together. This is why you should give me that time. This is why you should give me the opportunity, because I'm going to make you even more irreplaceable. I'm going to help you shine even more. Let's do this. And that creates this umbrella of care. That creates what community looks like when it's done correctly, when it becomes this identity, when it becomes so much more than the sum of its parts. When you put all of these people together in an online room or in an in-person room, and you create something powerful and special, that's what's going to make people feel a part of something. At the end of the day, if you do community correctly and you have it drive what CX can be, then 3 things are going to happen. Your customers are going to feel heard, your teams are going to stay in sync, and the brands are going to become human. Those 3 things. Those 3 things are going to make sure that we're actually progressing, we're actually evolving, we're showing emotional intelligence at scale. Because community is at scale. It's relationships at scale. So when you're building community, you're having all of these really human, emotionally intelligent touch points to build these connections, to build this engagement, to build these moments in time where these people have become something more than a customer to you. And that becomes an identity marker. We are the shoes we wear. We are the bags we want to wear. We are the places we want to go visit. We are the communities that we identify with. We also are the ones that we boycott. Target has had a very tough year since they got rid of their DEI initiatives. And massively people have shown up to say, I am not going to shop at Target because of this. So their identity marker is because of their lack of attachment to Target. They are identifying themselves by their own alignment. These are my values, and this is who I do and do not align with because of their choices. So when you do it wrong, it's the detachment that becomes the identity marker. When you do it well, it's the attachment that becomes the identity marker. So how you show up and what your values are, these are the communities that people want to be a part of. These are the ones that people are choosing to align with, to say, I am in this community because of this. I am not a part of this community because of that. And it becomes a part of how we show up as customers, as workers, as humans. And so when you're thinking about the communities that you're a part of, think about how many you would proudly say that you're a part of, and which ones have you left? Not because it was boring, not because it wasn't helpful, but maybe because you've seen things or you've heard things about certain communities and it does not align with you. It does not align with your values. It's important to understand that and really think about, what communities are you aligning with? What are you choosing to be a part of? What are you choosing not to be a part of? Because your customers are doing the same things, whether they realize it or not. We're all choosing how we align and how we show up with what we wear, with what we don't wear, with who we talk to, with who we don't talk to, with who we give money to, where we give our attention, where we give our money. The rest of the year, especially with like the concerns about the recession, you're going to see more and more people cutting things off because they need to cut money, but it's easier to cut money from things where they don't align. So here's your takeaways and action items. Here's your homework. I want you to look at your community, your current community, if you have one. If you don't, that's okay. And then look at your customer journey map and pay very close attention to where is community in your customer journey, if at all. And if you have any gaps where the community is not a part of it, then you have gaps. You are missing human connection. Community should be able to layer. Think of it like an Oreo cookie. It should be on top. It should be able to lay completely on top. So it's connective to the entire team, to the brand, to the external customers, but it creates an opportunity for the community to be a connection piece across the entire customer journey. So think about, where do you introduce the community? How do people get involved? Is there a specific part of the journey where that happens? And what happens as you continue along the journey? Or is it reinforced? Are there opportunities to become more involved? What does that look like? Then you're going to create cross-team visibility. Who is the community for? What does it look like? Why should your members enjoy it and be a part of it? How can it benefit them? Who are the teams that you currently work with, and who are the teams that you want to work with? And start building out that story, start building out that pitch. And then you need to embed community across the entire org. I am a firm believer that community should sit under the CEO. It should be its own department. And it should be very similar to a chief customer officer who does not live underneath anyone other than the CEO. It sits underneath, because the chief customer officer and the chief community officer should work across the entire org. They should talk to everybody. If anyone is a bridge in your organization, it should be them. They're the ones that want to work with everyone. They're the ones who want to talk with everyone. They're the ones that want to make sure that we are all working seamlessly together. So it needs to be at the heart of everything. It needs to be embedded across the org. And if you don't know how to do that, then start building out that story. Start building out that pitch. Here's why it needs to live everywhere. Here's why it needs to be embedded everywhere. It needs to be at the core of everything that we're doing. And that's going to help you shift from transactional to relational. Yeah, those spreadsheets are great, but those numbers, those are real people. Those customer figures, that's real people. Those are humans. That layoff sheet where you're talking about how many people are in different departments, those are humans. You need to start bringing the emotional intelligence back into corporate. And when you start focusing on relational versus transactional, you're going to show up differently for each other. You're going to show up differently for your customers. And you are going to look for ways to make them have their final form. You're going to look for ways to elevate and empower them. And that's going to make them feel seen. It's going to make them feel heard. It's going to make them feel empowered. And it's going to make them stickier to you, because they don't want to leave your brand, because if they leave your brand, they leave the community. The community becomes the piece that they can't say no to. It becomes the piece they can't say goodbye to. That's what's going to make them stay. That's what's going to make the customer experience at a top optimal level. So here's how you're going to audit that customer journey for gaps. Like I said, you're going to map those touch points. You're going to identify break points, and you're going to gather cross-team input. Can't assume here. The customer journey, it's very easy to assume. And if your customer journey is one line with like different touch points, it's not messy enough. Your customer journey should be the messiest thing you've ever built in your entire life. It should be the ugliest, winding road, looks like a map that someone got drunk on, that you've ever seen. Humans are messy. So if your customer journey isn't messy, you're not working with humans. Your customers aren't human then. It should be as messy as your humans are. So think about that. Then that cross-team visibility. How can we work together? What does that structure look like? Do we have regular syncs? How do we share insights? Is there an internal CX channel where we can kind of dump all of our stuff in one place to be able to help and collaborate and give updates? Whatever that looks like, how can we make it visible? And what kind of structure do we need to build out in order to create that visibility? And then, like I said, you got to embed it. That voice of the customer, that voice of the community needs to be absolutely everywhere. But how do you do it? How do you get it seen? How do you get it heard? We're going to build all these individual pieces to make sure that we have what we need. And we're going to celebrate those customer voices. And then, like I said, from transactional to relational, we are going to show up unapologetically human. The easiest way to be relational is to be human. What would a human do here? Not corporate girly, human. How do we show up? How do we show up again and again? How do we share that we care? It's not because you put someone in a workflow. It's because it could be you just DM'd them. Hey, I was thinking about you. Or, hey, I haven't seen you in our last couple calls. Just wanted to make sure that you're okay. How would you talk to them if they were a friend? How would you show up for them if you were a friend? Think about it in terms of relationships, and you will start doing the behaviors accordingly. And then reward that loyalty and advocacy. And look, I love a hoodie. I was in the tech world for way too long not to love a hoodie. But girl, that's not the only thing you have to give people. Time is probably the best thing that you can give somebody. 30 minutes of your time, 30 minutes of leadership. You don't need to have a big budget to be able to reward people, but understanding what's important to them, what's their carrot, What's going to make them feel seen and heard? It's going to be different from everybody else, but by taking the time to talk to them and realizing what happens to them and how they need to feel, it's going to change their life and it's going to change how they see you. One of the first things I did when I started at HubSpot was I did customer interviews. I had people, I basically tweeted out and said like, hey, if you're a HubSpot fan, like slide into my DMs. I want to talk to you. And I did those interviews. And one of the questions was, I know you love us. I've seen you on social. I've seen you talk all about us. But when was the last time we made you feel loved? When was the last time you thought we loved you back? And you'd be shocked at the conversations that opened up. Because not only would they say yes or no, but then they would tell me like what love looks like to them. What is their love language? What does it take for them to feel special? Because a hoodie to one person could change that person's life. A hoodie to another, they'll just throw it out. Or it'll sit on a chair in their bedroom and it'll never be worn. But you need to know the difference. That goes to that relational piece. And then make them the hero. Make the voice of the customer so loud and make them feel so psychologically safe and beloved. Make them understand why they hold that place, why this is an honor. And when you're in doubt, one of the easiest ways to do it is how can you turn favors into opportunities? How can you turn those opportunities into surprise and delight? You want someone to write a blog for you? That the way you pitch that could turn into like, hey, I need you to do work for me. Or it could turn into, I'd love to have an opportunity for you to share your perspective here. It's all in how you frame it and how you understand these people and what they want and what their love language is and how they want to play a role. That is going to turn all of the opportunities that you have into something really powerful where they get to shine. And last but not least, my book is coming out in September, and I hate to do this, but I also have to do this because otherwise my publisher is going to yell at me. But I wrote about all of this. I wrote about how community is at the heart of connection and that you need all of these moving pieces in order to build these customer brand relationships. So I wrote a book. It's in 3 parts. The first part is all of these moving pieces, whether it be behavioral psychology and social listening and customer support and metrics and all these things and brand affinity and fandom. The second part is how does community actually bring all these things together, all these moving pieces so that we can work together? How do you build that community from scratch if you don't know what to do? And then the third is what happens when friction enters the chat? When there are change management, when there are layoffs, when there's AI, when there's crisis comms, when there's PR disasters, how do you rebuild trust once it's broken? And so I hope you'll buy that. It's on pre-order. Let me know if you have any questions. Also, if you would like to get a reader copy so you can write a blurb and a review for me, also let me know that too. I'd love to be able to send everybody copies. And that's it. Feel free to follow me on Twitter X, especially with HBO Max. Going back to HBO Max, I'm 100% never calling it X. It's just Twitter/X for me because I'm hoping it goes back. But other than that, thank you so much for your time. And we will open it up to comments. I got you, Nikki.
Wow, Christina, that was super insightful, impactful, valuable, inspiring. All the words I can say right now. This was a great session indeed.
Thanks.
Let's give Christina a round of applauses here in the chat box. And we do have a couple of questions to address here. Adeline had a question, and she also said that she kind of got an answer, but I'll still read the question. Maybe there is something that you would like to add there, Christina. So the question from Adeline, what is the recommended ways to change that siloed versus abundance mindset around community in an organization?
Yeah, no, that's actually a really great question because it's hard. It's very hard. You have to be able to tell the narrative of why working together is better. Because if you're in especially a corporate setting, it's very easy to feel like everyone is a threat because you could be laid off or someone else could take the promotion you want. And so you kind of operate like your normal place is going to be scarcity because you want to keep doing more. If you're climbing a ladder ever, metaphorically, you have a scarcity mindset because there's only one ladder. You got to keep going up the rungs and hopefully get to the top. You have to figure out what does abundance look like. So who do you want to work with? How do you want to work with them? And why is it mutually beneficial? What is it in for them? How can you work together? And so I would do it department by department. And it could honestly be, I see someone working on this and I think that they like it pairs really well with my work. Like, I think we could work really well together. I'm going to reach out to them and be like, hey, I really love your work. Here's what I'm currently working on. I think there's opportunity for us to work together. And I think it could be mutually beneficial, but you need to lead with it would be mutually beneficial. Like, it would help me because da-da-da. It would help you because da-da-da. And make it very clear that you understand their metrics and you understand how y'all can help each other. But it has to be very clear how you can help each other. So it always comes from a place of what's in it for them. If they think that you're just using them or it's going to be a time suck, the answer is always going to be no. You have to show them what abundance looks like. You can't assume that they're going to get it. So I hope that answers your question, but you have to be like hyper specific on like, what does that abundance look like? Why it will help them, and why you're coming from a place of like goodness. You're coming from a place of like, I just want to work with you. If that makes sense.
Thank you, Christina. Sophia had a question. Community members are the clients, but how do I get stakeholders to allow me directly reach out to them? How best to build trust with stakeholders? And only sales and support teams have one-to-one interactions with the clients. Smiley face.
Okay. So welcome to community work. I know Nikki and other people in the chat can vouch for this. The hardest part of community is managing up and educating others on the power of community. And it never goes away. So I would break down basically why the current system is flawed and how you can improve it for not only the CS team, but for your customers and for yourself. What does good look like? So you need to be like, here's current day, here's what's wrong, here's what's working, here's what's not working. Here's what I'm proposing. This is how it would be better for across multiple metrics. Any kind of business, like leadership business metrics they care about, I would push for that. And then how do you get from A to B? So what would it look like? Because that's the thing too, is another thing to know about corporate is having a great idea is never enough. You need to tie it into something that leadership cares about, and then you need to explain to them how you would do it. So it's idea, why they should actually do it, how you would execute it, and then understand that chances are they're just going to be like, cool, I like this, go do it. So there's a lot of managing up. There's a lot of educating. There's a lot and you're going to do it your entire community life. As long as there's stakeholders, you're going to have to constantly be educating them on why it matters. If you know what what your stakeholders care about, if you know what metrics they're looking at to decide if they're going to be in a good mood or bad mood that day, if you can tie in anything you can do with the community that would help those metrics look better, that's your starting point. And then also, don't tell them too much. Leadership wants like the Cliff Notes version. They want like 2 bullets, 1 line, why they should care, go. As a community person in the trenches who's seeing all this, you're going to want to write like a thesis. Like, this is why it's important. This is why you should care. This is all these things. Leadership is going to see a long thing and immediately say no. Ask it quick. And the one thing that I think is really important to do is there was something that one of the leaders at HubSpot kept drilled into my head. It's called the triangle method. I would do an inverted triangle, which is I'm an English major. I'm going to tell you my life story. And then at the very end, I'm going to get to my point. Leadership wants the opposite. What do you want? So start with the ask. So they know very quickly like what I'm asking for. And then I can tell them why I need it. What should they know? Just assume that like someone with a real, like imagine like the most ADD person you've ever met who has like 2 seconds. That is how you need to pitch it to leadership. And it's hard. It's very hard. And when in doubt, honestly, this is one thing I do use ChatGPT for. I will brain dump all of my thoughts. And I would say, I am writing this for C-suite who wants an executive summary with one singular ask. Break this down into what you think is the biggest priority so that I can rewrite the pitch for like, how would I write this to C-suite? They have like 1 minute to read my email. They need to know what I want, why they should care, why they should say yes. Next. And then I let I let ChatGPT like clean it up for me and kill all my darlings. That's one use of AI. I think is a really easy way to do it, because I could write a book. I wrote a book instead of an email.
This is amazing, Christina. Thank you so much. And I think we will take one more question before we wrap up with the session. Christina, how do you not overthink the customer journey?
No, you're going to absolutely. If you care, you're going to naturally overthink it. So honestly, that's a good sign, even though it probably sounds like it isn't. What you need to do is do a little bit of game theory. So I'm obsessed with game theory. It's one of my favorite things. Basically, you hit like a Marvel wall. So if you're a Marvel fan, you'll know that they have the multiverse, and it was cute in the beginning, and then it became too much. Same rules for game theory in your customer journey. You're going to have a couple different alternatives of like, what are the different places they could go. And when it comes to a point where you're like, I would not watch that movie, that's when you can cut it. Move to the next one. All right, how many alternatives? I wouldn't watch that movie. Next. And basically like streamline it. So it's going to look messy, but it doesn't need to look like this massive, like it was like 20 different decisions at every touch point. Like that's wild. But like 3 or 4. I would do that. But that's a great way to think about it and kind of like give yourself some room for alternatives, but you're not just like being crazy.
This is truly amazing. I think somebody mentioned that the whole session sounded like a one-on-one coaching session with an expert. We're so grateful to you, Christina. Please share your comments, love with Christina in the chat box before we wrap up. And Christina, could you please just comment a little more how to pre-order your book? Where do we need to go to pre-order it?
Yeah, so you can go on Kogan page, but you can also go on Amazon. Amazon's probably the quickest. So let me put this in the chat. So there's that. And then let me see if I can give you Kogan page, because I think I have a code for Kogan page. Let me get it. Okay, and here it is on Kogan page. And I think it's Kogan page 25. Let me see. Yes, Kogan page 25. So if you go to the Kogan page and you do Kogan page 25, you'll get 25% off of the Kogan page website, not Amazon.
Fantastic.
But that'll be awesome.
Well, I think whoever is watching us right now should absolutely take advantage of the promo code to get their 25% off.
Don't pay full price. You don't need to do that. You're fine.
And I also shared Christina's LinkedIn profile in the chat box. Please make sure to follow her. And I'm sure that Christina wouldn't mind you reaching out to her if you have any other questions about the session. Christina, thank you so much again for this insightful session. I was busy this whole time making notes. There was quite a few of my favorite quotes that you mentioned today about leadership, about community, about making it human as much as possible versus automation. Those were all great, valuable insights. And once again, if you guys feel like you missed some parts, you can always go back to the recorded version. It's going to be available in our video library shortly after. And you can always replay the entire session, listen to those questions that we commented on today. And if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to Christina. And if you love this session, but you are not a member yet, please make sure to check out Led by Community membership page and join us as a member. We're always happy to welcome new members to our wonderful community. And just a few words to remind you about our upcoming events. May 28th, there's going to be a demo day and Community London Week in person. July 8th through July 11th, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, Francisco and Paula, but this is going to be a valuable week for you guys to learn a lot of information from best experts in community world. Thank you all so much for being with us today. Thank you so much, Christina. Keep learning, keep connecting, and building amazing communities together. Until next time, It was me with you, your host, Anna Nightingale, and see you all next time at our Talks and Pros session.